Good morning, 8th grade. Welcome to day 4 of week 12. Today is June 11th. We're going to continue with working with volume of a sphere, but we are going to now take that understanding and solve for the radius or diameter. So we'll click on our classwork tab. I'll go down to day 4, June 11th, as mentioned. Click on there. And you'll see that the directions say the usual, complete and review the lesson slides. Answers are on the following slides. For this particular lesson, you must use a cube root calculator. So we've been using a square root calculator, but since the volume of a sphere has the radius to the third power, if we are finding the radius, we're going to need to use the cube root instead. So to use the cube root calculator, you can use the link provided here. I'm going to click on that just to show you what it looks like. So you have the square root calculator, cube root, and then a general root where you can put anything you want in there. So we're going to use this one, okay? And I'm actually going to use it because I can't use my phone when I'm recording. But if you wanted to use your phone, the cube root is above the COS, which stands for cosine. I have it in the lesson to show you exactly where it is, but I know a lot of you were using your phone, so I wanted to show you where that's located so that you can use that in addition, okay? So the warm-up asks you to find the volume of the sphere. Most of you did very well with this, but some of you still got confused. If they give you the diameter, you have to remember to split it in half. So the diameter for this would be 6, since the radius would be 6, since the diameter is 12, okay? And then the work is shown here. We would do our exponents first. So we would do 6 times 6 times 6, which gives you 216. You would multiply the two numerical factors, 4 and 16, leaving pi out of it and just bringing it back after. Then we would divide just the numbers, 864 by 3. We get 288 times pi, which is our answer in terms of pi. We go a step further and multiply and round, okay? In volume, our units are always to the third power, so that's why you see yards cubed. Okay, so here is the cube root calculator. If you have your iPhone and you turn it horizontally, you'll see it located right there above the COS. Okay, and you can do the cube root in your calculator by putting the number in first that's underneath the radical symbol, and then press that key and it will find the cube root for you. Otherwise, you're going to use the calculator link that's provided in the lesson directions. That's what I'm going to be modeling with so that you guys can see that, okay? But I'll keep referring to the phone as well because I know a few of you were using that. Here's just a quick review of cube root. Cubing a number means that you are multiplying that number 3 times. So 2 cubed would be 2 times 2 times 2, which gives you a product of 8. The cube root of a number is when the index becomes a different number than 2. So we're changing it to 3. So we want to know what number, when multiplied by itself 3 times, gives you 8. So the cube root of 8 would be 2. Okay, so 2 cubed is 8. The cube root of 8 is 2. Here's an example that breaks it down for you. So the cube root of 64 is going to be 4 because 4 times 4 times 4 gives you 64. Okay, here's a chart that kind of gives you some common examples. I have a couple here just to review with you. So we just did this one, the cube root of 8. We're going to think, okay, what number times itself 3 times gives us 8? That number is going to be 2. Why? Because 2 times 2 gives you 4 times another 2 will give you 8. Okay? If you are using the calculator link, let me show you that first. Let me go back to it. Where'd it go? Okay. So it already has the 3 in the index there for you. So you just put your number here that you want. So I'm going to put 8. You click calculate, and it shows you what that cube root is. If you're using your iPhone, then using your iPhone, what you would do first is you would type in 8, and then you would press the cube root key, and you should see 2 pop up on your screen. You might need to press enter, but I think if you just press the number you want that's underneath the radical, then press this key, it should come up the cube root of it. If it doesn't, then just press enter and it'll pop up then, okay? And the last one for us to go over is the cube root of 125. Cube root of 125 is going to be 5. Because why? 5 times 5 gives you 25. And then times another 5, that's 3 5s, will give you 125. We could check that in the cube root calculator. You just clear this one out. So I'm going to put my cursor in, delete out 8, and I'm going to put in 125. I'll press calculate, and there's our cube root of 5. Okay? Remember, if you're using your iPhone, then I would just say you put 125 in your phone first, and then press the cube root key, and it should come up 5. If it doesn't, then just take that extra step and press enter, and it'll come up for you. Okay? All right, so that was a quick review of cube roots. We've done them since September. That was one of our first topics, exponents and number sense. So they should be pretty, you should remember them, but just in case, I wanted to give you that quick review. So today we're going to find the radius and diameter when given a volume only in terms of pi. We're not going to focus on out of pi just because we want to wrap this topic up. So we're given a sphere. In our first example, I'm just recreating it on my board. We are looking for the radius because that line is going from the side of the sphere to the center. And we are told that the volume is 288 pi inches cubed. Okay, so we're going to take this problem and we're going to use our information that we know about spheres to figure it out. So again, we are looking for the radius, and we're going to use the same formula we used yesterday, which is going to be 4 times pi times r cubed over 3. I feel like some of you may even know how to start this one off because it's similar to the cones that we were doing, but let's go through it anyway. So I'm just going to rewrite that formula at the top so that we see it again. Okay, and now I'm going to plug in what we know. So we know the volume. The volume is 288 pi equal to 4 times pi times radius cubed over 3. We don't know the radius. That's what we're trying to isolate. So there's no exponents to be done because the r, we don't know it. So the next step we're going to take is to get rid of the fraction. Since fraction indicates division, we're going to do the inverse and multiply. We're going to multiply by 3 on both sides. 3 over 3 will cancel because that's 1, and 1 times our numerator will be our numerator. So we'll be left with this on the right side. I'm going to rewrite that here. Okay, and then I'm going to multiply by 3 on my left side because we want to keep our equation balanced. Whatever you do to one side, you do to the other. Now, this is where we just pretend pi isn't there, and we just multiply the numbers, okay, the numerical factors. So 3 times 288 is going to give us 864, and we bring the pi back down. Why do we do that? Because for our next step, to isolate r a little more, we're going to inverse the multiplication that's happening to it. So we are going to now divide by 4 pi. If we divide by 4 pi, 4 over 4 cancels to 1, pi over pi cancels to 1, we're left with r cubed. Whatever we do to one side, we have to do to the other. So now we're going to divide by 4 pi and check out what happens, right? Pi over pi will cancel to 1, so we don't need it there anymore. It cancels out. All we need to do is figure out the quotient of 864 divided by 4. And that quotient is going to give us 216. Okay? So we're very close to the end, but we have to get that r by itself, and right now it's raised to the 3rd power. So to inverse a cube, or to inverse the 3rd power, just like how we did before when we inversed a square, or the 2nd power, we took the square root. To inverse the cube, or to the 3rd power, we find the cube root. So that's why I had to introduce to you that new calculator, okay? So the cube root has an index of 3 in there. It's different than the square root. So the cube root will cancel out the exponent of 3 and allow us to isolate our r. And then we do the same thing to the other side. We find the cube root of 216. So again, this does not mean we're dividing by 3. This means we're trying to think of what number times itself 3 times will give you 216. So most of the time I think of ones that I'm familiar with, like 5 we just did, right? 5 to the 3rd power was 125. So I feel like it has to be close to that. But let's go to our calculator anyway. we have the cubic root calculator here. Let's just put it in. I'm going to guess it's near 5 because 125 is not far off from 216. Let's see. 216, and I press calculate, and we get 6. Perfect. Okay, so our radius is going to be 6. If I wanted to check, I could do like a quick make sure that that's right. Calculator and make a mistake. 6 times 6 is 36. Times another 6 would give us, yes, 216. Okay, so my final answer would be R equals, can't forget our units, 6 inches. Okay? So we kept the volume in terms of pi because I feel like it's a little easier, a lot less rounding, a lot less approximating. You just have to remember to kind of keep that pi off while you start calculating until it cancels out in that inverse. And then you also need to remember we are finding the cube root of these numbers since the radius is cubed and no longer the square root. Okay? Very good. Okay, so let's go back to the lesson. Everything I just showed you is there. We'll do one more together and then I'll send you guys off on your way. The steps are here for you, exactly what I took you through. And now let's do this one. So notice in this one, we are looking for a diameter this time. How do I know that? Because the line is stretching from one side of the sphere to the other. So I'm going to erase our work and we will get this one started. Okay, so we have a sphere, and it's a diameter because it's stretching all the way across, so we are looking for the diameter. So I'll put that here. You should remember that if we're looking for the diameter is the same as 2 times the radius, right? So when we solve, we're going to actually find the radius, so we have to then remember to multiply that by 2. And we're going to use the volume that they give us, which is 972 pi millimeters cubed. Okay? All right, so we have our formula. Let's plug in what we know. So like I just mentioned, our volume is 972 pi equal to 4 times pi times radius cubed over 3. So we don't have exponents to do this time, so let's get rid of that fraction by inversing division and multiply by 3. So our 3's will cancel. We'll be left with our numerator of 4 times pi times r cubed. And then whatever we do to one side, we do to the other. We are only going to multiply the numerical factors. So we're going to do 3 times 972. We're going to leave pi out. So 3 times 972 is going to give us 2,916, and we bring pi back down with it. Okay? Now, to get our a little more isolated, we're going to inverse the multiplication of 4 times pi, which will be to divide by 4 times pi. When we divide by 4 times pi on the right, it's going to eliminate 4. It's going to eliminate pi. We'll be left with r cubed. We're going to do the same thing on the left side. Pi's will eliminate, and then we do 2,916 divided by 4. That's going to give us 729. Okay, so we're almost there, but we have to get r isolated. And remember what I told you before, to inverse cubing a number, we find the cube root of it. So that's when we take our square root, but we make the index 3, and that will cancel out the exponent. So we get left with r, which is what we want. Whatever we do to one side, we do to the other. So we're going to find the cube root of 729. What number times itself 3 times equals 729? So I'm going to go to my cube root calculator. I'm going to put in 729, press calculate. Oops, missed. And that answer is going to be 9. Okay. So I could do a quick check on the side if I want. Let's see, 9 times 9 is 81, and then times another 9. Yeah, because 9 times 1 is 9, 8 times 9 is 72, so 729, that's correct. Okay, so our final answer, we just want to make sure we put our units. Our radius would be 9 millimeters. But remember what we were solving for. We were solving for the diameter. So our diameter is going to be our radius times 2. So we're going to do 9 times 2. That's going to give us 18. So our diameter is 18 millimeters. Remember to always go back and make sure you're answering what the question asks for. Okay? A lot of you just want to get the work done. You move a little too quickly and then you miss those little minor details that makes you get the question incorrect. Okay? So go back to our lesson. Everything we just went through is right there. Same answer. Another one for you to try on your own, a real world example, and then you of course have your exit ticket for the day. So if we go back to your classwork tab, you will see that assignment here. You'll see I also included the calculator again if needed. I included the steps as a reminder. Click on the form and you will answer your questions. I believe, let's see, there are 6 questions, but just be mindful if it's asking for the diameter or if it's asking for the radius. If it's asking for the radius, then after you find that cube root, that's going to be your answer. If it's asking for the diameter, you have to multiply that by 2. Okay guys, take care.